Welcome to Next Level Humanity platform, and we're starting a new podcast series, Masters Unplugged, and I have a very special guest, dear Nektarios Liolios. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
And you have been busy with life.
Yes.
So I have a series of questions, and it's almost impossible to finish them all, but let's start with your life between two worlds, Germany and London. Corporate, startup, inner world, outer world. What shaped you most across these transitions between Germany and London?
It's been interesting. When I saw your questions, I thought every single question could be an hour podcast. It's interesting for me when you send me the questions to see what you started focusing on and what direction you were going to take this. Because the very first question for me is probably one of the most fundamental for everything. Because implicitly you're asking about identity.
Yeah.
Right? And being caught between two worlds, no matter where it is.
Yeah.
I instantly thought about always trying to straddle two potentially conflicting bits. The startup world and the corporate world. The being a Greek immigrant child born in Germany living in London. The gay man in a straight world.
It's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
Being born in Greece, and then being an immigrant, and then living in Germany.
Being an immigrant again.
And then London.
Yeah. But there was also, I was talking to a friend over the weekend, and we realized we were both the people in a circle of friends, where we were the cool ones for our nerdy friends, but we were too nerdy for the cool gang. So again, being somewhere in the middle, trying to be bits of both.
Yeah,
so,
interesting you say that.
Yeah.
I see similar in between worlds in my experience as well. Very interesting.
So ultimately, when you experience this, and I think I was lucky that I did some of it without being aware of it, is you just try to get the best of both and try to make sense of it. But it's not easy. No. It really isn't easy. The conflict between the corporate life and the entrepreneurial world was much more easy to handle because it was a conscious move. Mm-hmm. It was me running away from a world I didn't realize. I started realizing why I didn't like it and started embracing all the things that the founder life gave me. So that was a straightforward one. But this conflict between Greek, German culture, where everything at home was Greek, and a little bit, very conservative in the traditional sense, trying to hold on to traditions and rituals and language and customs, and being backward, and everything outside home, which was Germany in the 1970s and 80s, which was progressive and
strong culture.
But also very, like my parents were very religious, so for us, anything around sexuality and physicality was not a thing, whereas Germany was very liberal and there was nudism and sex education in school, and growing up as a teenager when you kind of learn things outside home and then bring them home and you can't talk about them was weird. But then when I moved to London, I was already...
It got even weirder.
Yeah, because I came to London thinking I'm more German than Greek. But when I started feeling a little bit homesick in England, the things I was missing were not the German bits. The things I was missing were the Greek bits. So bizarrely, I started defining a new identity which was much more closer to Greek than German. And I've lived literally, I'm 58 now, I've lived 29 years of my life in Germany and 29 years of my life outside Germany. So there is a bit of a weird one. But if somebody asks me, what are you? I've got a Greek name, I've got a Greek face, my favorite things are still Greek food, and so I still have this identity of being Greek.
Mm-hmm. So with your experience, I want to go back to why you decided to quit the corporate world and what you didn't like. Do you think there is kind of like a reason behind that, because you are a multiple cultural human being?
I don't know what is the reason that my risk appetite is practically... I'm not risk averse at all. Mm-hmm. Maybe because I don't have children, so I don't have a responsibility for that. But my attitude has always been, what's the worst that can happen? And that's why I moved to London, because I wanted to live in London. It's like, okay, it's an amazing city. I love going there on holiday. What's the worst that can happen? Let's try and live there. And same thing when this opportunity came up of joining this team of people who are running accelerators, but they didn't have the industry
Background.
perspective,
Yeah.
But also not an understanding of how an accelerator can be a useful tool for corporate innovation. We were looking for somebody. I was actually helping these people find somebody to run the programs. And then I thought, why? I can do this myself. At the same time, politics in my corporate job got so bad that I thought, you know what? I don't have time for this. And it was literally like 48 hours of going from, I could do this, to telling these guys, you know what? I'm joining you. And everybody was happy because suddenly we had the right profile of people. But it took so because I've been in corporate for 17 years. It took 2 years until I was comfortable enough to call myself an entrepreneur, because my brain was still wired in a way that I felt imposter syndrome. I didn't really fully embrace the freedom that I had as a founder. I still had this
9 to 6 mindset.
Not so much the time, but more like I was used to, for everything there was a policy. For some things you had to ask for permission, or you had to make sure that you get approval. And it took a while to realize, no, I am the approver.
You are the
of the thing that I need approval for, you know. So it took a while.
Okay.
But yeah, then there was no way back.
Yeah, sure. And when you look back at yourself, especially your younger self, what do you think is the reason you started with finance, and what motivated you? And what's the motivation? Is it curiosity? Is it ambition?
So that's
something
again,
deeper?
That's for a whole other conversation, for a longer conversation. So I never had anything to do with finance, technology, innovation, nothing. I want, as a young child, as a teenager, I wanted to be a choreographer. I love dance. I was dancing. That was my dream. As an immigrant child, that's not a career option. There are 3 approved jobs, which is doctor, lawyer, or accountant. That's it, right? Maybe an engineer, but there was no choice. And so I had to stop the dancing. And then I thought I wanted to be a diplomat, because I like this world of diplomacy, the translating, the making sure things work without being at the forefront. And in order to do this, at that point, I did some research, asking around, and I needed to speak foreign languages. And I spoke already English and some French, so I decided to study French, and I studied political science because that was one of the degrees that would have allowed me to become a diplomat. And then I really quickly gave that thought up as well, but I like political science a lot. And then I stayed at uni for quite a while, did my research project and my thesis on developmental policy. And then I had no idea what to do, so I took a job on in a company because I knew a little bit about computers. And they needed somebody to be the human help desk. And again, what's the worst that can happen? I did this for a while. It was nice to earn some money for a change. I did this for 2 years, then I decided to move to London, and I came to London, and the only assets I had was I understood computers, and I spoke multiple languages fluently. So I got a job in a financial institution who needed somebody to support their proprietary software. And that
so it happened by itself.
That's how I entered financial services, literally, with no idea about it. I remember sitting in sessions about introduction to capital markets, because what I was doing was on the back of stock exchange transactions. And I was like, I have no idea what these people talk about. But then one thing leads to another, and if you do a job well, and but to your point, if you're curious, then you can get far. And curiosity was definitely a driver.
Yeah,
curiosity, this desire to learn, an ability to adapt to people. I realized this looking back. And that's how I made a career, became a manager, became a senior manager. I joined a really high-profile team with a stock exchange, at Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Then I took a break because I was not too excited, and then I get back in the industry. So it's all very zigzaggy. I'm literally not a good example of how to build a career.
I mean, I think you are. The reason being, because as you know, I teach behavioral sciences, and I help people change their lives, transform their lives by changing their behavioral habits. And it's very interesting, as I have done, research on what shapes us, or how do we become the individuals we become. I got to realize that actually life shapes us. Sometimes in our minds, we can get very conditioned and very distracted about what we want, where we want to go. But in the end, life shapes us, or life supports us in such a way that we end up at the right place at the right time. We're meeting the right people, doing the things we came here to do. So it's very interesting that we humans don't know, but it's like the future is there, and life just brings us.
I have a
there.
nuanced perspective on what you said, and it all came. I was really intrigued when you used the word curiosity. Let me take a detour. At some point, when I left my entrepreneurial life and the business that I built in 2018, I started seeing a therapist, mainly to help me process the professional grief of my identity, because it was so tightly linked to my business. And she asked me to draw. And I said, look, I hate drawing. And she was like, come on, it's not difficult. And I was like, I'm not a very creative person. And then she was like, okay, let's stick with it. And it practically helped me to understand that my definition of creativity is very narrow. But the moment she volunteered the word curiosity as a different word for creativity, it all fell into place. Now, if we're linking this back to what you just said, looking back, because I didn't have this North Star. Like, I've got a friend who wanted to be an architect when he was 12, and he's just retired as an architect.
Wow, that's...
Right? I look at these people go, I always envy you a little bit for that clarity, but at the same time, that clarity comes with certain constraints, because I could look at any opportunity, and if I was curious enough to see where this could take me, I had the freedom to jump on it. So a lot of it is all curiosity. It's like, okay, let's figure out what this looks interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Somebody at work once came to me, this is in April 2007, and says to me, we've got this job for you. You're the only person in the company actually has these 3 different things combined that would make you perfect at the job. I said, okay, let's talk about it. And he goes, it's in Sydney. And I just went F off, right? Because Australia never featured in my life, in my head. But guess what? 4 months later, I was on a plane to Australia because, hey, this looks fun.
Yeah. I'm more like you. So I sometimes do envy people like those. And since we haven't seen each other, you know what I did? I put on a cabaret stand-up show.
Okay.
As an actress.
All right. Okay. That's a different
and
direction
of creativity.
And I
did 4 shows for a couple of thousand people. And I decided to put on a show and got that show ready. And I was on stage in less than 6 months.
Amazing.
And that's also, so I can definitely connect with what you said, like curiosity. Why not? It looks interesting. Let's try. What the hell?
See,
that's like life. Yeah.
This format doesn't really work for me because I'm very curious about people. So you just told me this, and I'd rather flip it and ask you all the questions. And it was a bit weird just being...
Yeah, next time, promise. Or maybe we'll have lunch and talk about it.
Go to the question.
So my next question is, was there a particular moment or a breakdown where you had to realize, something isn't working, and you had to redefine what success meant for you, redefine what life or curiosity even meant for you?
Interesting. You don't notice it in that moment. Looking back, you realize some things contributed. It was usually multiple factors coming together. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing for me was that usually when I ended up making a bolder move, the thing that wasn't working was usually something that would go against my values, although I wouldn't have the vocabulary to phrase it like that. Mm-hmm. And it's sometimes very stupid, very silly things. My very first job as a student was working in a supermarket checkout. And I loved it. It was fun. I was earning money. There were nice people around me. And I was 18. And then they introduced this policy where you have to wear this corporate uniform. And it was beige and brown in the 80s. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to wear this. So I quit because I didn't want to wear the uniform.
Because of the uniform.
So there was a trigger. And my response to this was, I'm not ready to this. I'm going to do something that's important to me in that moment at 18. My shallow brain, that was important. So I left the job. But later, I left my old business because there was a misalignment in values with my co-founders. We got to a point where I felt that we could no longer communicate and we could no longer go into conflict conversations in good faith. And I tried to address it and I didn't feel resonance. So it was very heavy that I chose to leave the business that I have built over 5 years. So there is usually something that triggers it. And although they might look different on the outside, the back is something that just goes so fundamentally against my ability to continue operating. But it's also usually around people when you realize that any attempt to fix things, to repair, isn't working, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sort of very much, I would try to make it work and I would try to be very articulate and very intentional about it. But it takes multiple people for this, right? It takes two to tango, and if they don't play, then there's not much you can do, right?
Yeah. And you are, with everything you're telling now, and because I have done a lot of research on you, and we did chat about you a lot with Chidam, I must say. You're what I would call is you're a man of principles. So those values, it's like for me, that you have a set of values, set of principles, which is also a way of, saying you respect yourself, first of all. And I think that's one of the biggest formulas for success, because when you're a man of your own principles and you can say no to things outside of you because it doesn't fit with your values and principles, that's a, I think, huge step towards success in life, because I think the universe and the whole order of the universe supports that. Basically, it's very respectful.
It's interesting that you frame it like this, because that statement I can agree with now. I didn't have this awareness earlier on that this was the reason why I was doing something. In that moment, it might have not felt right, but I didn't know. I couldn't put words towards that. Actually, this goes against my principles. It goes against my values.
Yeah.
I did grow up with a very strong sense of right or wrong from home. My parents was very religious, and I rebelled against it. But I still was aware that although I didn't agree with what they defined as right or wrong, it still instilled the sense of there are lines you don't cross. There is respect. There are principles and rules, and absolutely.
And it's all about the respect for yourself, and that's just I find it brilliant. It's just I respect people who respect themselves, and people respect people who respect themselves. So that's kind of like a really I think nice attitude, something to.
It doesn't always work though, right?
Yeah, I mean, it closes some doors, opens some doors, and in the end, I mean, overall, I think it does work.
I was in 2 long-term relationships, romantic relationships. The first one 17 years, the second one 7 years. And looking back, there were moments where I should have gone, should have just left the relationship. They weren't abusive, but they weren't really serving me, and I didn't feel I would get the respect or the kind of the equal contribution, whatever framing you want to put on it. So professionally, it's really easy to say that, but there are other aspects in life where my respect for myself wasn't loud enough to be able to say, you know what, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think I want to experience this, or we had an agreement, you broke it, this doesn't work for me. So it took a while to come to that recognition with a lot of work, with a lot of therapy work and introspective work. And now it's very different, because I'm now in a relationship for 12 years where it's very vocal, it's very open, there's constant realignment, and there's exactly that, but it requires both parties to also be prepared to do some of their own work.
Yeah. So you left one, and then you're now experiencing a better version of.
But I was also much older when we got together. I was 46 when we met, so I was at a different stage of my life, right?
Yeah, we definitely changed towards life. And let's talk a little bit about Future Farm.
Okay.
Shifting from acceleration to introspection. Yeah, so what was the realization?
So the Future Farm is a platform that I started with a friend. We both worked in the startup ecosystem, me through the accelerators, Vladi, she worked for a VC. And we both saw that in this world, there was an environment where entrepreneurship is celebrated. but it was a very specific version of entrepreneurship where you only talk about the cool stuff, the amazing successes, the multi-million-dollar raises, the work ethic of the founder who would sleep for hours a night and all that. And there was no space to even acknowledge that there is a dark side to this.
Yeah.
But us, the operators, we were exposed to this all the time.
Yeah.
We saw in the accelerator people struggle. We saw, Vladi as a VC, saw founders in their portfolio really struggle with the whole physical well-being, mental well-being. And we thought, let's do something to raise awareness. Just get people to talk about this in a world where it was complete silence.
Yeah, because entrepreneurship is actually full of tears and pain and sweat. And
yeah, but where are the articles about this?
Yeah.
Once a year on World
Just
Mental Health
one-sided.
Day.
It's like everything else in the popular culture, everything.
And there was a systemic element
side.
to this, which is that VCs in particular, they also prefer the founders who keep everything under wraps. They don't like the founders to come to them and tell them, actually, my marriage is about to fall apart because of blah, 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 or I'm struggling with anxiety or depression. So we started in 2019 trying to figure out what to do, and we didn't really know exactly how to approach this, and I thought, you know what, let's do storytelling. Let's start with founders who are happy to share their journey. That's how we started our podcast, Naked. But the other thing we did is we looked for research, and in 2019 there was one study, and one study only, and this study was 4 years old, that talked about this interplay between entrepreneurship and mental health.
Really? Just one?
Yeah. I mean, we're now
That's
10 years later, since that study, and there's 5 global studies around this, it's still not that much research.
Still not much.
But the interesting thing was, as an entrepreneur, you're twice more likely to experience anxiety, depression, you're twice more likely to engage in substance abuse, 3 times more likely to have suicidal ideation. So there's all these things. And that's where we started digging deeper, finding more people who are operators in that space. And we created this community of people who are all coming together because we want to, A, make it more transparent what's happening, and B, also do something about it. So if you see this as a spectrum, there are the fixers, the people who provide, I don't know, counseling, support, coaching, etc. There's people like some VCs who recognize that they're part of the problem and they want to be more intentional about this, but it's a very, very small minority in this really big sea of investors. And we saw ourselves in the middle as conveners, as people who just bring everyone together. So we had a whole bunch of podcast episodes where we tried to be as diverse as possible when it comes to our guests. So founders across different ages, from very young founders to founders in their 60s.
Who got successful and who failed.
Yeah, people who, different types of businesses, like venture-backed businesses, non-VC businesses, non-tech business. We had a very famous chef, Asma Khan, who runs a restaurant here in London called Darjeeling Express, or an Olympian athlete, Dame Kelly Holmes. Everybody who is in that situation where they're quite isolated because of the pressures of the environment, who have very specific challenges. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't matter who you talk to. It doesn't matter the ethnicity, the religion, the sexuality, the gender, whatever. People have very, very relatable experiences. And it's a sense of loneliness, it's a sense of isolation, there's nobody to talk to. And then the different manifestations, we wanted people to actually spell out, what does it mean when you talk about anxiety? Because it's one thing to say, oh, I'm feeling a bit anxious today. It's another one to have this founder from Pakistan who told us that for a week she would drive to the office and she couldn't physically get out of the car, so she would sit in her car for 8 hours and then drive home. Right? Or people talk about their suicidal ideation, how they would go to bed thinking, if I die tonight, my kids would get insurance tomorrow, so we will have money. So very different scale, right? Or we started doing public talks on the subject, and there was a woman in a conference in the US who raised her hand, and she said that at the age of 33, when the business was actually doing well and they had like 200 people, etc., her body went into menopause, and the doctor told her this is clearly linked to the stress that you've had over the last 5 years. So we wanted to get these stories to the surface, so we built a counter-narrative to entrepreneurship is 2 dudes in a carriage, build something cool, they find a VC who believes in them, they raise 200 million.
This is more humanistic, and this is more...
Yeah. And maybe one more thing to add is, one of the things that was really important to us was everybody who talked to talk to us about what were the signals they saw but chose to ignore. Because we want people to hear the podcast episode and go, well, I'm experiencing the same thing. I've started neglecting my exercise. I'm eating badly. So they start realizing that whatever happens to them is actually normal. And a lot of it was really about normalizing the experience and saying it's okay to say I'm struggling.
I find it fascinating when people don't realize, I mean, when people say things like, I didn't realize things were going wrong, and it's like, how can you not see that something is wrong? It's like, it's just your whole chemistry and your physiology and your psychology is just
I tell you why.
upside down, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
face to face with yourself every day. At least when you just lie down to go to sleep, it's just I don't. That's my opinion. I don't find it fully sincere when people say, "I didn't realize it, until now," because they do.
Yeah.
But it's just they do, and then they just put it under the rug. So there is a
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. There's two bits that I can reply to this because this is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Of course they do. But they don't feel they have permission to acknowledge that it's valid.
Yeah, they don't acknowledge.
It's an environment
Yes.
that doesn't allow people to say, this is real and I need to act on it. There is this thing, if I just close my eyes, it's going to go away. That's one thing. And related to that is also this, a lot of people actually don't have that level of ability to introspect because they were never brought to it. I did a talk on the subject in India last November in Mumbai in a room full of founders, and one of the guys came up to me afterwards and practically thanked me for even offering up the idea of introspection. So this for him was a new concept because he was brought up in an environment where you just don't do it. And we met a researcher from King's College in the UK called Ute Stephan, who gave us a very simple example about why entrepreneurs are more likely to experience burnout. And she says there's, for normal people, non-entrepreneur people, there's a natural interplay between stress and fulfillment. When you're super stressed, your fulfillment goes down. When you're fulfilled, you're less stressed. But entrepreneurs have this unique ability to be extremely stressed, but still continue to gain fulfillment because the driver for founders is different from somebody in a corporate environment. In a corporate environment, it is somewhat transactional, it's often self-serving, and it's fine, there's no judgment in that. But entrepreneurs usually have this chip on their shoulder where they want to prove something. And that keeps them going once the stress makes their physical health getting worse, their mental health getting worse. And this is why you have people who know something's up. But this intrinsic motivation, this drive, doesn't allow them to see it in the right light and go, I need to do something about it.
Yeah, I usually find entrepreneurship and professional athlete experience very similar because I was a professional athlete. And then I have no corporate experience. I was an entrepreneur from the start. So with the entrepreneurship and with the professional athlete, I think the thing is loving pain in a way. It's
normalizing
like you just love and you just want more pain and you just are fulfilled with pain and more stress and more stress until you can't take it anymore and then you crash. So because you have interviewed all these people and you were able to go deep into their journey, there were tears and very emotional moments. You probably did experience those similar moments in your life as well.
Oh yeah, no, I'm very open about my own roller coaster.
Where was that like when you look back?
So I grew up in a home with a highly depressed mother. My mother was hospitalized for depression when I was a teenager. So we grew up with this story that mom's depressed, but we didn't really know what that means. We had no idea. We just knew mom was not well. And the reason I mention this is there is also some research that shows that the propensity for certain mental health manifestations is if you have mental health challenges in a family, you're more likely to experience it yourself. I noticed some of my behaviors very clearly could fall into the bucket of depression. I had periods in my professional life where there was days where I just couldn't get out of bed and I wasn't physically ill. So now I know my signals. So I know if I start showing a particular behavior, that is a sign that something's off. And I can do something to correct it, to course correct. I've had a period in my first business in rainmaking where towards the end, because of stress with my co-founders and the physical stress of being on a plane all the time and building and growing the brand and the business, etc., I started taking its toll. So I was really, I didn't sleep more than 4 or 5 hours a night for 5 years. I had put on a lot of
That's
weight.
damaging.
Yeah, it was all very good. There were stories, and because I was loving it so much, I was deluding myself into this is just part of the game, and I'm loving it. There's sometimes I talk about this in a public talk. I once did a post on social media that said this week we're doing cities that start with the letter M: Mexico City, Mumbai, Melbourne. So I did this in a week. I flew from Mexico to India to Australia and back, and I thought it was cool. I really loved it. Like there was one flight where I boarded the plane in Miami and my nose started bleeding as I entered the flight, the plane, and it didn't stop until I landed. And all these signals were there, but right, there's physical health manifestations, mental health manifestations. One of the things that is very common is people isolate themselves increasingly because business always comes first. So you drop the remote, relatives and friends, and then slightly smaller circles. Do we need to go to that birthday? Do we need to go to that wedding? But at the end, when it gets really hard, there's very few people around you. So I was quite lucky that I didn't do that because my social contacts are quite important to me. But I had my phases of really being badly depressed.
We all did, yeah.
Even now I started my next business and then we got into really bad co-founder conflict. And again, I realized how it affected me by the moments where I started withdrawing. Not just from that situation, but just withdrawing completely. So having that awareness and that loop is quite an interesting one. But I use therapy a lot. So for me, therapy is a really good tool. So I have an outlet and I have an accountability partner who just holds up the mirror and goes, this is what I'm seeing. That helps me a lot.
That does, yeah. So from here, I want to just dive into a maybe deeper question. We all experience depressed moments and we all experience lows and highs. I think that's very humanistic. It's not like there's no such thing like, I'm a individual who have mental health problems. My idea is everybody does. If you're a human, you will have your lows and ups and highs. Some people don't talk about it, some people talk about it, but that's part of being human. I want to go back to people who put business first, especially before themselves, the idea, and ask the question, why? Because I think that's the deepest level of the question, like, why do we put the business or money or, all these things before ourselves? So because we're all human, and philosophically we are animals in search of meaning. So at the end of the day, we're all searching for meaning and happiness. So why would we put business? Because now we're at an age where I think after 50, you start questioning life philosophically, or maybe 45, I don't know. It's like, because you start understanding that there is a deeper meaning than, those shallow and this, kids and marriage and money and we are humans and we are in the search of meaning, and you're going to leave everything behind when you die. So so with all the experience you've had and all the people you have interviewed, why do you think people put business and money and everything before themselves?
So this is not an easy thing to answer, but let's break it down into bits. First of all, I actually disagree with you that everybody at a certain age start that introspective process. There's a lot of people who comfortably reach the end of their lives without ever looking inside and trying to figure out why.
Yeah.
And I really need to make an effort not to be judgy about this, because it's really important to me that we do this. There's also the other side, the other end of the spectrum, that we are of a generation that has experienced the world differently, where we actually had more time to develop into these questions. Whereas the younger generations, all the way into Alpha, grow up in a world where all these things are available. Spirituality is available. If you want to dig deeper, you can find out, whether you pick a platform, whatever, a path, a communications channel, a tool, an app, and it becomes a lot more blurred. And therefore I think the reason I'm saying this is like there's a whole spectrum of people who would never really meaningfully engage with it because they never had to or because they don't want to, and that's fine. For the rest, I always find it interesting to figure out what motivates someone. So when you were talking earlier about my life choices and how I measure success, it made me smile because for me, and I found out without even doing it consciously, when I meet someone, I usually have two basic questions without asking them. The one is, why are you doing what you're doing? What motivates you? And the second one is, what does success look like for you? How do you think you've done a great job? And the motivations are usually a handful of categories, right? It's, I don't know, money. It's success in terms of status. It's learning, impact, right? If we play around with these, I think everybody ultimately has varying degrees of a combination or maybe different stages in your life motivate you differently. And I think if I look at founders specifically, and by the way, there is no research about this on why does a founder become a founder. There's a whole bunch of assumptions or theories, but nobody's actually found the one thing. But if I look at the people I've spoken, and it's not just the interview people, right? I mean, I've worked with founders since 2000. So for the last 15 years, I worked really actively with founders and the accelerator startups, but also people who've exited for hundreds of millions of dollars and stuff. Every single person I've met who's built a business is driven by some sort of chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove to the world that they cannot necessarily put into words. And sometimes it is prove my dad that I'm worth something. So maybe it is I was bullied at school and I need to show the bullies that I'm worth. But it's all to some unmet need that this is the way to show that I'm worth it. And therefore you make all the compromises and accept all the, pardon my French, all the shit it comes with. Because you have to prove something, right? And then there's a small group within that, which are the impact focused, the social impact focused founders, who not only do they have to prove that they can be successful, but also save humanity. Which is great as a motivation, but when things go sour, a founder who was building a commercial business, wanting to super rich, will struggle with the fact that the business failed. A social impact founder, in addition to this, will also feel like they've let everyone down, right? So, but why is it? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe something to do with the experience that we've had in our childhood.
But we all, I mean, seriously, you can take every single person you know who's built a business, and the thing that drives them is something they usually wouldn't be able to put real words around it, but often it is something around proving a thing.
Maybe an inner void, we can say.
Maybe.
Some experience you've had.
Like my partner works for a bank. He was a consultant and now he works for a bank. And sometimes he looks at me and goes, why are you putting yourself through this? and it's kind of interesting because he doesn't understand it. Because he really loves the idea of having a 9-to-5 job, and he's very good at what he's doing, but he also likes shutting his laptop down at 5 or 6 o'clock and then not thinking about the thing until the next morning. And I was like, wow, I mean, these people exist. Obviously, that's how the world functions, right? But if you look at, I don't know, the top 50 companies in the world right now in terms of valuation, I would say more than half of these companies didn't exist 30 years ago. So these are innovators, creators, people creating new value and people solving problems that need solving. So there is something there that drives people to do that.
Yeah, and would you agree that the difference between entrepreneurs and people in the corporate world are, one of them, like you said, can shut down their computers and be with their kids or family during the weekend, and entrepreneurs are thinking about their businesses while they sleep?
I think is one of the differences. One of the differences is also people being aware of the constraints in their life. Like when I was building Startup Bootcamp, there were often people that would have loved to be able to bring in, like people who had the ideal profile for a job, but they couldn't jump into a startup because they had a family and two kids in private schools and a big mortgage and all that. And then there were people next to them who were comfortable sleeping on a friend's sofa because they had put everything they had into their own business.
So one last question about the founders.
Okay.
With your experience with the founders, would you also say with the founders have a mindset of, how to put it, like, you can't tell me what to do. I decide on what I'm going to do. Yeah, on one level, like, because I've seen that in founders. They are founders because they're like, you just can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do my thing.
There's certainly a segment that does that. I like working with the ones who ask for input. Because those are the smart ones who know what they know and what they don't know. Sometimes you have to admire the very clear vision of somebody who doesn't take any input from anyone else. But for me, I actually really like the ones who have an idea, but they also realize that they need experts or need experience to get to their idea. So they get all the information. I prefer the ones who get information from people, and then they make a choice about a path.
But again, they decide.
Yeah, they decide.
So it's kind of like this,
you need to,
I'm going to decide.
the decision ultimately, you need to be able to do it because you're also going to be the one responsible if things don't work out, right? So absolutely. And there is a strength in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go into more philosophical questions.
Okay.
Which is, I love this question. What's a belief you once held on to tightly and you have outgrown?
So I saw that question and I really had to think about this. Which is difficult to answer when you don't have these really tightly held beliefs because everything's relative. There's one that keeps cropping up time and time again. And I can't answer the question directly by having given it up. But it's a fight, right?
Okay.
Because it's been going back to the principles and the values. I meet people for the first time and it's always in good faith. You really need to make an effort to mess things up for me to walk away from you. But it means that there's been a few times in my life where I've been hurt. Where I've been disappointed, where I felt like I was stabbed in the back, people weren't unethical, and it's happened even recently. And I talk to people about this and they go, you know what, your life would be so much easier if you don't make it so easy for people to get into you. If you have a barrier and vet people before you allow them in, you're much less likely to get hurt. But my strong belief is that everybody deserves a chance from the get-go. So I'd rather take the risk again to be disappointed and hurt than build up a barrier that feels unnatural to me. So my belief is still that one, and I'm not giving it up, but I get repeatedly reminders that maybe I need to change the way I engage with the world. And I refuse to do that. I can't do that. It's just too much effort. Being cautious around people, no. You meet me and within half an hour, you know half my life, blah, 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 blah. And it's like,
it's too much effort.
I like
you take the risk.
being vulnerable and I take the risk. But the last few years and the geopolitical situation at the moment has really rocked this a lot, where you feel like the majority of the world around you is much more aggressive, much more selfish, much more less open and collaborative. Political. So all this polarization where there's no room for nuance, that's really challenging my belief.
Yeah. And what do you think about where humanity is heading and who no, it's a general question, but who we humans became over the years with the fast pace of life is the question, because life is getting faster and faster and faster, and that is definitely changing humanity with AI and all the information out there, with the fact like you can build an app in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever. It's like you can do this and build a company. Like everything is getting faster and faster. And with that ability, humans and human relationships are definitely changing.
Yeah.
What do you see happen? Because we are right now the older generation now.
Absolutely.
And when you probably are looking to the younger generation and how fast it is and their way of communication and relation and relating and who they are as humans. I sometimes think we are even chemically different. Like our chemistry is very different than, my chemistry is very different than my 15-year-old daughter's chemistry. She's a different creature. So, what do you think is happening to humanity, the next generation, and with this fast pace and technology evolving in this pace?
I struggle to answer that. I can give you some thoughts, but it's very
just
unstructured, right?
thoughts, yeah.
So there's one is I observe all of this with curiosity. There's people my age or even younger who are very judgy about this. My brother's a teacher. He's exposed to kids and he's got very clear views about right or wrong. And for me, it's evolution, and humanity has shown that we adapt. So something will happen. The other thing is I always have this dual view of the world. So there's always good and bad with everything, but also really believe in pendulum. So sometimes the pendulum swings one way and then it needs to calm down. And at the moment, a lot of things are at the edge and people are very upset about certain things. And at some point, things will also even out. So I don't get scared. It's easy to see some of these evolutions, especially as an older person, and just see the negatives and go, it's all doomed and we're all going to hell or whatever. So I'm really not sure how to feel about this. And there's times where I just want to shut myself completely off because it's a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
And there's times where I just want to talk as many people as possible just to get a bit of a sense of what's happening. The interesting thing for me is that one of these parallel things that have happened in the last years is this increased awareness about neurodivergence. And now in my late 50s, I'm talking about, with my therapist, about the autistic traits that I've been showing. And now that we've identified them, a lot of previous stress situations make sense. And now I have a vocabulary to express what's happening and also an awareness of what I need to do to regulate myself and not get stressed, not get burnt out, etc. So there's a lot of positive stuff that I see with this increased awareness about a variety of different things. The thing that I'm really, really struggling with is having been sort of born in the late 60s, so post-World War, into the Cold War, and then having seen us coming out of it, and I experienced this phase of optimism, political optimism, societal optimism, growth, progress, and at the moment it feels like it's all regressing, and that's difficult.
Yeah.
And in parallel to this, what's happening technologically, I would read a book, sometimes a book a day. As a teenager, I was like crazy reader. I struggle to read a book. I struggle, my attention is gone. I can barely read a long article. Luckily, I can still use audiobooks, which helps me, but my ability to focus is gone, which is all down to, and I know exactly when it started. It started when I got my first smartphone. So there's a very clear link between the two, right? Yeah. So I'm also a victim of some of the societal events, which makes me realize that whatever happens with a 15-year-old now, with a 5-year-old now, they will have a different way of consuming information, using information, but I don't think they're going to be worse off. I think they're just going to be different. We can't imagine.
Yeah, they're just different. Yeah. They're capable of other things, incapable of other things, just like us, capable of. I see the difference I have seen the difference in my meditations. It's very interesting. I've been meditating for over 25 years now, and over the years, the more I work and the more I use technology, the harder it gets for me to just leave my phone off and just dive deep into presence for 20-25 minutes, because the moment I have a brilliant idea, I want to reach out to the phone and it's just that this fast track world kind of like absorbing me in. It's just this magnet. It's very interesting, and they are in that magnet. I would like to talk a little bit about sustainability, because I have seen that in the future now, and also in the future, that's going to be our biggest problem. So I want to ask you, what does sustainable success feel like for you? in this lifetime?
Well, sustainable success is, I can talk about this without talking about sustainability.
Yeah, yeah.
I hate it when people are very binary. There's one way of doing things. You do A leads to B, etc., etc. So for me, sustainability is developing a mindset of adapting to new situations, but keeping growing.
Mm-hmm.
And sustainable success for me means if somebody's if you stay with founders, you start building a business, it didn't work out, you got some learnings, you got your scars, you still have the drive to build, you do your next one, what you've learned from it, and you add to your repertoire of tools and perspectives and experiences, and that for me is sustainability, is somebody who keeps growing. And I believe in all of this, I put much higher value in the personal growth of the individual than the value they're creating. I've seen so many people, I literally have seen dozens of people. I had a conversation only 2 weeks ago with somebody who's successfully exited a business. So this is the dream, right? Somebody who's built a business from scratch over a number of years, made all the sacrifices, and walked away with, in this case, 120 million sterling cash, right? And you look at that person, you go, you're not happy. Your marriage has gone. You're now a 42-year-old man with 2 sports cars and a 25-year-old girlfriend. You live in the cliche.
Yeah, you live in the cliche. I think it's a big word.
But what is it that you get out of this that actually gives you an element of satisfaction, an element of happiness, but also looking back and going, this was successful beyond the cash? So for me, it's that growth journey that's part of all of this. And if you look at some people, how they talk about successful founders, how they talk about what they've built, etc., it's never really only about the material success.
Yeah.
Does this answer your question?
Yes, and it also answers my previous question, which was which was like the why, and I again find it fascinating. Maybe it's just me, because I'm a thinker, and that's who I am. I like deep thinking and thinking deep at looking at things. So I find it fascinating how people can just run after a cliche and don't question, like, is it worth it? Like, is it worth, losing your marriage, or is it worth losing whatever? Is it worth losing your health? And we have a lot of examples of people losing their health, people losing their relationships, people losing their friends, and then yay, you have 100 million pounds in the bank, and then when you ask if they ask themselves the question, wasn't worth it? If the answer is no, that's very sad. I find it very sad. If that was your only goal in life, and if you ask yourself, is it worth it? Yes, then a big congratulations. Then that's who you are, and what this is meant to happen. That's great. But I don't think so. I think most of the founders, at the end of the day, if they don't question beforehand, they might answer no.
The was it worth it is an interesting one, because one way of getting a little bit deeper is not was it worth it. The question would be, have you scratched that itch now? Is it fine?
Yeah.
Because if you look at most people,
is it fine?
It hasn't. Yeah. It hasn't.
Are you fine?
Is it fine? They still have they're already thinking about the next thing, because a lot of it is bringing it back also the beginning of our conversation. A lot of it is linked to identity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I've built a business successfully. I made a lot of money. The businesses, people are using my products and services. I'm a name, but I've sold it now. So my identity that was linked to the thing is gone now. So where am I without the thing? And that's where they go into the next thing. That's why you get Elon Musk's not only building the car, but also building the Starlink and building the blah, blah. Because there's always questions around, who am I if I'm not the thing that I built?
Yeah, then another deep question. This is about my deep thinking process. I also find it interesting that people who are coming from wealthy families and who are born in old money and in families who have built wealth
Mm.
over generations after generations and after generations, that's not, and also have been building wealth, but also holding the wealth. They have somehow also built a respect and a level, I would say, in the community, which the new money people who are highly successful are having a hard time to build. So I see that those families who are coming from a wealthy background and generations of wealth are much more respected than a startup exited individual who maybe even has more money. And I find it really interesting. It's like maybe it's not about becoming rich, it's about creating wealth and creating a legacy and creating a generations and generations of wealth. And I see, for me, sustainability, especially in economical sustainability, that's like, for me, that's sustainability, and that's true wealth.
Well, you could argue that somebody
Yeah.
should give those
Yeah.
new people the chance over multiple generations
Yeah.
to reach that
Yeah,
level.
if they can,
Yeah.
they are, because it's like for generation after generation. And that's the difference between wealth and, I think, becoming rich and becoming wealthy. You can become rich overnight, but do you become wealthy overnight? Because becoming wealthy, the word wealth comes from health and well-being. It's like, it's about keeping
No, I hear you.
wealthy and keeping, it's very interesting. So let's come to mastery
Okay.
after this. Wealth mastery, life mastery. Mastery is a lifelong process, and we are all students in it. So I would ask you, where are you as a student on the path to life mastery?
So, having grown up in a Greek household, the old philosophers were quoted quite liberally. My parents were both had an education, so they knew a fair bit to quote. And I remember once my dad telling me about Socrates and practically paraphrasing, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. And when I heard this as a young, very studious kid, it didn't make sense. And now it totally makes sense. So there is a recognition of how small you are within a much wider pool of people and knowledge and cosmos. And so where I'm on my journey is being a lot more aware about the smallness. But that's fine. And being comfortable with it, yeah. I'm still insanely curious about people. That's my main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even now I started, so my last startup, I tried my hand on a startup for 3 years and it came to an end last year. And now my main professional focus is to help founders with team alignment, with conflict, with their own well-being and resilience. So stuff that I personally care about, which have got to do with people, because in the end, it's all about the people. So part of all of this journey to land on this particular professional direction was to realize that I really don't feel I have anything to prove. So again, it's not about mastery in that sense, but it's just recognition that the things that matter to me are human interactions, using my skills, which is mainly translating between people for those who need it, and that's recognizing that there's a really big sea and we're just a little drop in it. So
yeah. What's the difference, do you think, between living life for thyself, for yourself, and living life for others?
well, technically there shouldn't be a difference, right? Because you cannot be of service to others if you don't look after yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole, and this is something we talk about when we talk to founders about their own well-being. It's like, there's a reason they say on a plane, put your own oxygen mask first before you help others.
Yeah.
It's both. It's not an either or. you cannot completely withdraw. You are in a society, you're a social animal, so you need to work with others and you need to help others. I believe we have an obligation to also help what we can, but at the same time, the only thing we can do this is by figuring out how to look after ourselves. So for me, it's a yin-yang, it all fits together. Use any analogy that is built on duality. Some people are more interested in being more altruistic. Some people are naturally more selfish, and again, who knows what happened in their childhood. It's interesting, though, in the context of post-COVID, where we all went through a phase of the beginning having a much more awareness of us being socially responsible for each other, and then it flipped into being increasingly more selfish. Yeah. So I'm struggling with that. Like, there's a difference for me between I need to look after myself to be able to function in the unit, and I'm number one, and that's all that matters. And I struggle with that.
Yeah. Do you see that often with founders?
Not just founders. This is, for me, it's a societal trend. I don't think it's a founder thing. I think it's generally a lot of people nowadays have, again, the pendulum has swung into we need to, it's only us as a country, it's only us as a community, it's keep others out, it's all the narrative. Look, when you've grown up being a minority on so many different levels of your life, it's really easy to get that feeling back of being singled out. Like, I've been a migrant all my life, I'm a gay man. It's all of this experience of, at the moment, because everybody feels so threatened from everything, it's very exclusive, and that's not nice.
Yeah, and I find it very aligned with what's happening in the world, what we talked about, the fast, pace of life, because even in meditation or even in spiritual self-practices, when you slow down, when your breath slows down, when you slow down, you open up. When your breath is fast, and when you're fast, you shut down. Yeah. So that's what actually is maybe the fast pace of life is doing. Like, people are becoming more and more selfish and more closed up, and it's all about me, because of the, fast race. To open up and to become us, to be connected, it's just, we need a slowing down process, and even the whole slow life trend is about that, just opening up. And I don't know if that's gonna ever happen, because I think they're, like I said, the new generation are different creatures, and what we see as selfishness is their way of communication. And that's like, we have been maybe to get stronger and to build communities. Our generation had to grow roots and grow branches like a tree, align with each other and stick to each other, and we're like more, I don't know, like we're growing together, but they are separate trees with separate roots, and just in an artificial world with unlimited space.
So for me, it just feels, I don't know, I don't have the creativity to describe the world of a younger person. But what I've noticed is that it feels to me like I grew up and I signed up implicitly to a social contract that we all signed up for. And somewhere in the last 10 years, that contract has changed and nobody told me. I feel left out.
I love it.
Right?
I love it because I feel the same.
This is how it feels like. I don't understand some of the interactions, and I'm trying not to be judgy about this. As you say, it's like it's somebody else's way of communicating. It doesn't mean it's a bad way. It's just a different way. Yeah. I'm curious to understand it, but nobody at the moment has the vocabulary to explain it to me. It feels that there's a gap. I need somebody to tell me in words that I understand what is different with a 15-year-old today and the way they communicate. I'm pretty sure that the connection is there. It's just a different connection in a language that is completely alien to me.
Yeah, I'll just tell two examples, which might enlighten that up. My younger daughter, 15 years old, she's been using. There's a platform called Roblox where it's an artificial world. Roblox, So she's been in that platform since 3-4 years old. And I have done a little bit of a research by myself, asking her some questions. And at the end, I understood that her waking up and getting out of her bedroom and coming to the living room, and her waking up in an artificial world and going to another room is not different. It's very interesting. These are for her because she's been born into those two worlds and they are so aligned. She just doesn't like her. But for me, if she's in an artificial, like she's playing with her friends in an artificial world, having conversations and, in an experience for hours. And then when I ask her, like, why don't you meet with your friends? And she's like, I am meeting with my friends. So for us, one-to-one communication right now here together physically is very different than us, even in being on Zoom. For me, it's different. Or, in an artificial world, it's very different. For them, it's not different.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what is different in there. Like we see them as selfish, but they're in a world of their own. Because in that space, they connect with the outside world different than ours. And another question, which might be also lighten up the experience. For example, have you ever used a dating app?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
How many times?
Oh no, this goes back a while. The first time I used a platform was in 2002.
Okay.
A platform called Gaydar. And then when I was single in my mid-40s, so probably 13, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, but not recently.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking you how many times is because they're using it every day.
Oh no, I used to use it quite regularly.
And their whole experience. So the difference between meeting people on a dating app and meeting people at a pub, I think is the difference between the communication of us. And because my mind, I can't wrap my mind around, for example, for me, maybe I'm too old, around dating apps, because I'm so used to meeting people in person, in a pub, I just,
Okay.
And that's where I feel, for example, left out.
No, I understand.
There is this, my mind, the way my mind thinks as an older generation is, when I meet people who met on a dating app and married, for example, I'm like, how can you ever meet someone on a dating app and my mind, I'm just finding it really hard to, for me it has to be real. It's it's just like pretending you're eating a apple, artificial apple, and I'm like, I think taste it.
I'll try to shift your perspective a little bit. It's not to deepen the relationship, it's to start the relationship. It's the hook. It's literally just, you see something. In the olden days, you would go and shop and buy something. Now you see it online and you order it home, and if it doesn't fit, you send it back. I think it's a flavor of that for me, a dating app. It's the initiation of a contact. But I don't think you get to the point of getting married without then creating the real life. But I hear what you're saying. There is a different mindset.
I'm finding it really hard.
Yeah, because it's like shopping. It's like it's a catalog, right? It's like swipe. And in a pub, you see somebody's, like for me, one of the things it's attractive in a person is the way they move. You don't see this from a photo, or the way they smile. For me, a smile is super important. And sometimes you see these stunning people, and then they smile, and suddenly it changes the face, and their attractiveness goes. You don't see this in an app, right? So I hear you about the disconnect between the real world and the online world, but they're tools.
Yeah, they are. And my last question, we had an amazing conversation.
Wow, we're way over.
Right? Yeah. What does being unplugged mean to you?
Oh, unplugged. I'm very bad at doing it, so it's really difficult to articulate it. I'm addicted to my devices. I'm always intentionally trying to control it, and I'm not succeeding. The closest thing I get to it is putting myself into situations where I know there's other stimuli that really speak to me. So I love a view. So 2 weeks ago, we were on a Greek island. We had this tiny little house overlooking this beautiful bay, and I could sit there for hours and just looking into the sea. And there was an element of unpluggedness, but I would still have my phone within reach. So I'm not the sort of person who can go to a retreat for 48 hours or longer, or like a silent retreat for a week. I've got a friend who does that. Unplugged is really difficult for me. But I still have the things that give me comfort. I love still listening to music. I love going to the theater. So for me, these moments are moments where I still unplug, and then I don't use my distractions.
Yeah.
And I can't understand how somebody can watch, like, this whole idea of a second screen, which is now very common, where people watch television and in parallel they're on the phone, which has an impact on how scripts being written nowadays, because the scripts are a lot more descriptive because they know that people aren't watching, so they actually explain more, which dumbs down the content.
Yeah.
So there is a whole conversation around this. But
and I said last question, but I want to also
Okay.
ask, what truth do you live by right now?
That without
Because
any
I want to
wine.
end with a deep question.
Look, I don't think we can survive as a species if you don't bring into everything we do a level of compassion and curiosity. I think we all need to strive to be curious about the other person, and when we see something we don't really understand or don't agree with, approach it with compassion, because that would allow us to continue existing and agree to disagree and respect people for the bits that they contribute. And at the moment, we're losing a little bit of that, and that's worrisome. But if that's a truth that I live by, that's probably it.
Yeah. Lovely.
Was this a good answer?
Lovely. Yes. I had a really good time. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for
And
creating space. I'm not used to this kind of conversation, especially not before lunch. It's a dinner, wine, brandy conversation.
Yeah. Lovely. So I'm certain our listeners and also people who watch us from YouTube learned a lot. It was a deep, lovely conversation.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you for
meaningful.
having me. Thank you for creating the space for it.
And thank you for being who you are.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You too. Cheers.
Thanks for everyone who is listening or watching us on YouTube. If you like our videos, please click on like and become a member to our YouTube channel and podcasts. See you in the next one. Thanks.